basically, this was just like my concluding post was like, if these things are not changed, this is why I personally wouldn't see myself as a customer of Wildstar, why I wouldn't be drawn to actually or compelled to play the game. And after making that post, I got blacklisted from the game. Hey guys, Iskamar here, and today I just want to talk about Wildstar a little bit. You know, I don't really want to beat a dead horse, but the other day I finally got access to one of my older hard drives, and as I was digging through it, I found some really old alpha gameplay from Wildstar. I was an alpha tester for the game, and I wouldn't be talking about this because most of the time NDAs, extend well beyond after the launch of a game. But since it's dead and in the cemetery, I thought, what the heck, let's talk about it a little bit. And I'll be showing you some of the gameplay from the alpha. So I just thought we'd have some Wildstar story time today, and I could provide my perspective of my time in the game and what my interaction with the devs and leadership was like, and just kind of give my thoughts on it. So I got into Wildstar, trying to think now. I'd imagine it was in 2013 when I was alpha testing it, and at first I was pretty pulled in. I was enjoying, I saw potential in the combat. I saw something that could be fun. It was one of the few games doing real deck building at the time, and it just seemed like a lot of promise. There was a lot that could potentially be there. That was before I really started to interact with the development team. And I guess at that point in time, I had participated in another AAA alpha test, and extensively, and I guess my experience with the devs there really spoiled me. Not in the sense it spoiled me, but it was pretty good experience in the way that they interacted with their players and sought feedback. And so jumping into Wildstar, I was thinking that it was going to be something like that. I was expecting something like that. And while there was interaction with the devs, while we did have talks with the devs, it was way different. And the way the devs took feedback was way different. So let's talk about the game itself and why I was having fun with early combat. And as you could see in these clips, playing Esper and stuff, I stumbled upon something that I learned to look for in games after playing Guild Wars 2, and that was a little bit of a dodge bug. So in games that have dodge, a lot of times you can bug the animation by jumping at the exact same time. So I think in Guild Wars 2, and I think the bug still exists in Guild Wars 2, it used to be like one day I was in the mists and I was just jumping off the cliff for God knows why, and I accidentally hit my spacebar and dodge at the same time, and I saw my character do a front flip, and I was like, what the hell? And so I started trying to replicate it, and I think it was space with a rapid succession dodge. Like, you had to dodge right after you hit space. And you actually got more distance covered when you dodge that way. So after that, I did what any sensible gamer is gonna do, and I macroed that so that I could front flip all the time. It looked obnoxious. Plus, as you can go back and see some of my really old Guild Wars 2 videos from the closed betas. It looked really obnoxious, but it also provided you a little bit more different distance coverage. Well, in Wildstar, I think it was the opposite. I think it was dodge with a quick succession spacebar. And since there was a double jump in that game, there was a way, I don't remember exactly how it worked, but there was a way to get really big distance covered, cover lots of distance with the double jump and the dodge. So that was it felt really good. To me, it added another layer to the combat. It made it a little bit more action-paced and visceral. And I really enjoyed it. There was also another bug there, to where you could do this. You could do the the dodge roll, double jump on terrain, on certain points of terrain, and the terrain physics would just shoot you out like a cannon. And that one was a little bit, it wasn't as replicatable, but it could be replicated at times. It was just a lot less predictable. And I guess I wouldn't say this was one of my first interactions with the devs, but I do remember, while we're on this, I do remember heavily petitioning to the devs for them to keep the bug or find a way to ingrain it into a mechanic. Like, I just thought that it added an extra layer to the game, made the combat feel a bit more active, and there was actually some skillful ways to utilize it, if I remember correctly. You didn't want to just use it all the time, because you're not going to want to cover crazy distance all the time, so there was ways to mix it up. And I think when I look at the Assassin gameplay clip that I have, there was some different ways to interact with it, and I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. But if you look back to a lot of great games and a lot of games that were extremely mediocre but ended up being good, was because they had some sort of bugs and glitches and things that they decided to just keep in the game because it added an extra layer. And I think that's a mark of a good team, is when they can find something, or at least it's a good decision making. I think it's a good decision making process to be able to find things that weren't intended. Like, your players are interacting with your game in a way that you did not intend it as a designer. But if you sit and you're like, this adds depth, this adds fun, this is actually a good thing, and decide to keep it in your game, that's a good thing. And that's what I was trying to argue to them, and nope, they shut it down and they fixed the bug. As far as the team goes, and I guess I could lend a little bit of credence. I'm not going to say any names, but I can lend a little bit of credence to the a lot of the reports that we saw on the Reddit and comments talking about leadership, because I do know someone that was in a leadership position that ended up leaving the company over philosophical differences really early on. So I do have a little bit of glimpse of there being, I guess, differing views in a way that couldn't be resolved by, I guess, working through it and getting on the same page. There were leadership issues, and my experience with the devs would only embolden that. Although I don't want to cast a blanket over the situation and say that I really know, because my interactions were limited. I think that one of my early interactions with the development team was in a dungeon, and from what I remember from that interaction, it was pretty good. But then I know we were called in to test one of their, I don't remember what they were, but they were like these story mode missions that you did with a group that existed in Wildstar. I don't remember what the content was. I didn't come back and play the game on launch because I thought the game was garbage. But I'm trying to remember what these missions were called. I don't know. It doesn't matter. What matters is I remember playing it, and I remember being thoroughly unimpressed at just the whole scope of it. Not just some little minute things, just the whole content loop, the whole content medium just was not good. It was really bad. And I remember trying to voice criticisms to them, and it seemed like they didn't want to hear it. It was a really good case, and you find this, I guess you'll find this with anything. It's just not isolated to game development, but when someone creates something, or when you're creating something, I mean, I can be guilty of this behavior too, but it's something that I've tried to learn to check within myself, is you can start to drink your own Kool-Aid too much. And when you find, when people disagree with you or try to even bring constructive criticism, it feels like a blow to your ego, and you shrink away from that, and you try to deflect. And that was pretty much my whole experience with the game, was deflection after deflection. And not only that, this is where I really want to hit on a big pet peeve that I have. Just not even a pet peeve, just a problem I have with testing in general. And if you've been guilty of this, or you know people that have been guilty of this, or you yourself have participated in this behavior, it's okay, but just try to remember this in the future. When you're in an alpha test, when you are in any sorts of like internal testing, you are not there to protect the developers. You're not there to be the vanguard of the developers. They're white knights and protect everything that is right and uphold their thoughts and opinions as sacred. You are doing them a disservice when you do that. I've seen this in almost every single testing experience I've been a part of. Anytime someone brings up even valid or constructive criticisms, there's people there that take it as an assault onto the game and onto the developers and their vision, and they do everything to just defend the developers. And that was something that ran rampant in the Wildstar testing community. There was a lot of testers who really just shielded the devs on things that needed to be said, things that needed to be fixed, things that weren't good. There was a group of players that really they basically acted as the force to attack any constructive criticisms. And so I just want to say that if you get into a test, you're there to, within the constraints that the devs want, the scope that they want you to test within. You're not there to just stroke their ego. You're not there to just make them feel good and validate their opinions. Testing is meant to bring in actual people that will be bring in actual players and then see how they interact with your game and what they think. The development model that existed and still exists primarily right now is testing within a closed environment and not getting really any feedback loops. So they develop all these things based on their own internal thoughts, and what they think might be good might be utter garbage in the hands of the player, and so they need to hear these things. So don't go in and shield developers, and don't be a total dickbag either on the complete opposite end. Don't just shit on the devs. Try to offer constructive criticism with solutions, actual proposed solutions to whatever it is that you're giving feedback on. But even though I've seen this in every test, I've also seen devs that don't fully give in to the delusions of these testers that are shielding them. There's a lot of devs that will also look into the constructive criticisms and try to check it based upon their knowledge of the game and what they feel, and actually give it some thought. But in this test, it seemed like they were more likely to take the opinions of those that are defending them as, see, this is the right thing, and pretty much shirk all constructive criticism to the side. And ultimately, I started to see through a lot of the game, and at first I didn't really see it as a problem. But holy crap, when you start playing the game a lot, the disco light fest of the game and the telegraphing system, why did they think that the telegraphing system was a great marketing point? Why was that a core feature of the game to be advertised? It was so bad when you had a bunch of players and you just see all the telegraphs. Why would you want a telegraph over just being able to see a readable animation? Don't get me wrong, telegraphs have their place. They have their place in design. There's moments where things do need to be telegraphed, and they benefit from being telegraphed. Certain skill design calls for certain sorts of telegraphs, and not all of it's going to be readable through an animation. But whenever I feel like this happens a lot in game development, to where you have something that you like, and then you just start designing things around that rather than the actual context where it fits. And does this make sense for this kind of skill? Does this make sense in this kind of situation? That's thrown out the side. It's just we're going to throw telegraphs on everything. We think this is cool. It's kind of like in a lot of action games, they'll just make everything a skill shot just for the sake of action. Everything's a skill shot. but not all skills are designed well when they're a skill shot. Not there's a lot of design and there's a lot of sacrifices made when you make everything a skill shot, and it doesn't fit in the context of everything. So that's why I think it's better to have a more level-headed design approach, to where you actually design things for the sake of what's there. Like, you're actually checking it against the identity of what is being built, and does this system actually fit what is being built? And that's just a huge problem that could be applied at scale in Wildstar. There was just so much design that just made no sense whatsoever. And so that was one of the big points that really started to bleed through with me. But there was just there's a huge laundry list of problems in that game. And I guess to end today's story time, because I don't want to just sit here and rant and ramble over stuff that I don't even have a clear memory about, and just keep pulling things out my ass. I think that my climax with my testing experience with Wildstar can kind of sums up the whole development of the game, and that is this. In my experience with the developers and feedback and criticism, was we're getting closer to closed betas. We were getting closer to like some of the later closed betas. Or actually, at this point, there might have been the alpha server still running, and then they had like some closed beta servers going on. I can't remember exactly what, but that doesn't matter. I remember making a post, just hitting on the core, like the major issues of the game that just were really problematic and that I foresaw would really hurt the game. And I said that I basically, this was just like my concluding post, was like, if these things are not changed, this is why I personally wouldn't see myself as a customer of Wildstar, why I wouldn't be drawn to actually, or compelled to play the game. And after making that post, I got blacklisted from the game. I was blacklisted from testing, like I was blocked from everything. And I think that just pretty much sums up my experience with Wildstar and how the developers and everyone treated criticism within that community. And that's it. That's my Wildstar story time. I just saw these clips and just thought that, you know what, I'm not trying to just beat a dead horse. These clips just kind of inspired me to, show them to everyone, show some early alpha gameplay, but also just kind of give my lens into the game and why it might have failed. That isn't the full picture, but that's at least my view into the game and what part I played in it. Anyways, thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one.